the revolt in Bavaria, and the rise of Hitler. In 1923, Germany was a nation in turmoil. The First World War had left it in ruins, both physically and economically. The Weimar Republic, the democratic government established after the war, was struggling to survive amid widespread resentment, hyperinflation, and political extremism. People were angry, hungry, and desperate for change. In this chaotic environment, Adolf Hitler saw an opportunity to seize power. He was leading the small but growing Nazi Party, which had yet to make a significant impact outside Bavaria, a region in southern Germany. Hitler believed that the moment had come to topple the Weimar Republic and replace it with a strong nationalist dictatorship, one that would restore Germany's former glory. But the path to power wasn't easy. Bavaria, like much of Germany, was filled with right-wing nationalists who disliked the Weimar government and its decisions, especially the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, which they felt had humiliated Germany. But even with this growing nationalist sentiment, Hitler's Nazi Party was still small. He realized that, in order to overthrow the government, he would need to unite all the anti-republican, nationalist forces in Bavaria, including armed groups, military officers, and other political factions. By the summer of 1923, Hitler had begun to form alliances with these groups. One of the key figures in this movement was General Erich Ludendorff, a war hero from World War I. Ludendorff's reputation among conservative Germans made him a valuable asset to Hitler, despite their differences. Hitler, however, did not want Ludendorff to be the political leader of this movement. He wanted that role for himself. The general, though, could lend his famous name to the cause, helping to bring more support to Hitler's efforts. In September 1923, Hitler and his allies organized a huge rally in Nuremberg, where they gathered various nationalist groups and declared their goal: to overthrow the Weimar Republic and tear up the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler and Ludendorff, alongside other nationalist leaders, were in the spotlight. For a moment, it seemed like Hitler had the support he needed. However, there was a problem. In Berlin, the Weimar government had made a critical decision. Chancellor Gustav Stresemann announced that Germany would stop resisting French occupation of the Ruhr Valley and would resume paying reparations as part of the Treaty of Versailles. This move angered nationalists, but it also led to a strange unification of forces across Germany. People rallied around the Weimar government in a show of defiance against France. This was the last thing Hitler wanted. He wanted to destroy the Weimar Republic, not support it. He took an unpopular stance by speaking out against the government's decisions, calling instead for the overthrow of what he called the traitors of the fatherland, those who had accepted the terms of Versailles. He argued that only a dictatorship, led by him, could restore Germany's strength. Meanwhile, in Bavaria, tensions were escalating. On September 26, 1923, the Bavarian government declared its own state of emergency in response to the growing unrest. The state's leaders, including the monarchist Gustav von Kahr, were taking increasingly drastic actions. Kahr was appointed as the state commissioner of Bavaria with sweeping powers, effectively placing him in control. In Berlin, officials feared that Bavaria might attempt to secede from the German Reich and form an independent state. The situation in Germany was now reaching a boiling point. President Friedrich Ebert declared a state of emergency at the national level, giving the military special powers to restore order. The army was now the most powerful force in Germany, and it was ready to act. General Hans von Seeckt, the head of the military, made it clear that the army would back the government and defend it against any uprisings, whether from the left or the right. The crisis in Bavaria was now reaching its peak. Kahr and his allies, including General Otto von Lossow, the head of the Reichswehr, the German military in Bavaria, were defying the orders of the national government. Kahr was openly rejecting Berlin's authority and Hitler saw his chance. He knew that he could not overthrow the government without military support, so he began plotting an armed march on Berlin, inspired by Mussolini's march on Rome the previous year. On the night of October 30th, 1923, Hitler and his supporters, including Ludendorff, launched the Beer Hall Putsch. The idea was simple: march into Munich, take control of the government, and march on Berlin to force a national revolution. The first step was to seize key government buildings in Munich. However, things did not go according to plan. The Nazis, led by Hitler and Ludendorff, were met with fierce resistance from the Bavarian police. The putschists were surrounded and quickly crushed. Hitler himself was arrested, and the leaders of the coup were tried for treason. Despite the failure of the Beer Hall Putsch, the event would later become a turning point in Hitler's career. Though the putsch had failed, Hitler used the trial as a platform to spread his message. He gained national attention, and many began to see him as a leader of the right-wing nationalist movement. Hitler would later use the time he spent in prison to write Mein Kampf, his manifesto, where he outlined his vision for Germany's future. Although the Beer Hall Putsch was a failure, it marked the beginning of Hitler's rise to power. His aggressive nationalism and defiance of the Weimar government would continue to resonate with many Germans in the years to come. The Nazi Party would rebuild itself, eventually gaining enough support to take control of Germany in 1933. But in 1923, Hitler's ideas were still on the fringes, and the road to power was long and difficult. In the aftermath of the Beer Hall Putsch, Bavaria remained defiant, and tensions between the Bavarian leaders and Berlin continued to simmer. The national government was left to deal with the repercussions of the failed uprising, while the military, under General Seat, continued to assert its dominance. In the end, it was the army that maintained order and helped preserve the Weimar Republic for a few more years. But the rise of Adolf Hitler, fueled by his vision of a nationalist dictatorship, was already underway.